There is a particular kind of confidence that only debt can manufacture. Not the earned confidence of a structure built on solid ground, but the performative kind. The kind that insists the numbers are fine precisely because everyone has agreed, quietly, not to look at them too carefully. The property market has been living inside that confidence for the better part of 2 decades, and what we have called growth has largely been the expanding shadow of what we owe. The mechanism is elegant in its simplicity. Low interest rates made borrowing cheap, which made buying expensive, which made prices appear to rise on their own, as though the land itself were generating value rather than the credit conditions surrounding it. Investors, institutions, and ordinary homeowners alike looked at their balance sheets and felt wealthy, not realizing that what they were reading was a ledger written in someone else's future. Price and value had quietly parted ways, but because the gap was filled with freshly issued debt, nobody had to acknowledge the distance between them. Now the architecture is visible. Roughly $875 billion in commercial and multifamily mortgage debt is set to mature in 2026 alone, approximately 17% of the $5 trillion outstanding, following an even heavier load in 2025. These are not abstract numbers cycling through a spreadsheet. They are a reckoning, deferred year after year by a practice that has become almost routine. Extend the loan, modify the terms, push the maturity date forward, and call it stability. An estimated $400 billion in prior year maturities were rolled into 2025's obligations, producing a total of over $1 trillion in loans due in a single year. The industry has not been solving the problem, it has been scheduling it. What makes this particularly instructive is what it reveals about the nature of price in this market. Property values did not rise because more people needed more space in more cities. They rose because credit was abundant and leverage was rewarded. The moment rates moved, the moment the cost of carrying debt became legible again, the illusion thinned. Historically low interest rates prior to the pandemic made borrowing increasingly attractive, producing a significant accumulation of debt that now constitutes the structural weight the sector is moving beneath. What felt like appreciation was often just leverage compounding on itself, the way a mirror facing a mirror creates the impression of infinite depth. Beneath all of this, quieter and more personal, is the income story. And in the UK, it is a particularly revealing one. Wages have grown, technically. Regular pay in the UK rose by approximately 4.5% in the 3 months to November 2025, but when adjusted for inflation, real wage growth amounted to just 0.6%. That gap between the nominal and the real is where ordinary life actually happens, and it is precisely that gap into which rent has been moving. Private rental costs increased by 8.7% in the year to January 2025, far outpacing both inflation at 3% and average wage increases of 5.9%, meaning that the cost of simply occupying space has been compounding faster than the income available to meet it. The Resolution Foundation forecasts rental costs for existing tenants will rise by 13% over the next 3 years, far surpassing the 7.5% wage growth projected by the Office for Budget Responsibility. This is not an affordability problem in the bureaucratic sense. It is a slow structural extraction, a transfer of purchasing power month by month from the people who live in homes to the debt that finances them. The average UK house price escalated from £81,628 in 2000 to £296,699 by 2025, a 263.5% nominal rise, while wages grew by just 107.2% over the same period. House prices have not merely outpaced wages, they have lapped them. The result is a population increasingly unable to transition from renting into ownership, which sustains rental demand at elevated levels, which justifies further rent increases, which erodes the savings that might one day constitute a deposit. The cycle is self-reinforcing because it is structured to be. Debt props up prices, high prices trap renters, trapped renters subsidize landlords carrying debt, landlords carrying debt lobby against anything that might reduce their yield. The market does not malfunction. It functions exactly as the incentives demand. In the UK, this structure carries a particularly acute complication, one that does not appear in the headline statistics, but is felt acutely by anyone who has tried to move within it. The market is profoundly illiquid. Residential conveyancing currently takes an average of 120 days from instruction to completion, with chains routinely extending that timeline considerably further. Complex property chains can push the process to 6 months or more, since just one slow buyer, mortgage delay, or failed survey further up the chain can pause everything. This is not a minor administrative inconvenience. It is a structural feature of a market where turnover is slow by design, where every transaction is load-bearing for several others simultaneously, and where the failure of any single link cascades through the entire sequence. The consequence, when financial stress enters the picture, is that defaults do not resolve quickly. A seller in distress cannot simply exit. They must wait, through surveys, searches, solicitor inquiries, mortgage approvals, and chain coordination, across months in which their debt continues accruing interest. Their mortgage offer may expire, and market conditions may shift beneath them. Most mortgage offers carry an expiry of 3 to 6 months, meaning that if completion is seriously delayed, the buyer may need to reapply entirely, restarting the process, triggering fresh affordability checks, and introducing further risk that the deal collapses altogether. In a liquid market, a distressed asset finds a price and clears. In the UK residential market, it waits. And the waiting is itself a form of compounding harm, extending default rather than resolving it, and keeping the loss theoretical rather than realized for as long as the chain holds. The response from lenders has been instructive in its own right. Banks have been more than willing to extend loans rather than take back assets, not out of generosity but because repossession makes the loss real, and so long as the loan remains on paper as performing, the loss stays theoretical. This is not crisis management. It is crisis maintenance. In the UK, the slow mechanics of the conveyancing system serve the same psychological function. They distribute the recognition of loss across time, making it legible in increments rather than all at once, which is exactly the arrangement that everyone involved has an interest in preserving. The story for the remainder of the decade, by the assessment of those closest to it, is the slow offloading of this debt load toward a more stabilized market, a process not expected to produce meaningful price competition until 2028 and beyond. None of this means collapse is imminent. Markets have a remarkable capacity to absorb dysfunction when the dysfunction is distributed broadly enough and named carefully enough. What it does mean is that the property market, as it currently exists, is not a market in the honest sense. It is a managed deferral, a coordinated agreement between lenders, owners, regulators, and a conveyancing system optimized for deliberation rather than velocity to treat time as a resource and hope as a strategy. The debt does not disappear when the term is extended. The rent does not become affordable because wages are technically higher than last year. The chain does not become healthy because no single link has yet broken. A market built on what is owed rather than what is worth is not a foundation. It is a floor that everyone has agreed, for now, to keep calling solid.